I grew up in what looked like the perfect family. We had our fun times where we laughed, where we cried, or simply enjoyed each other's company. There was my adopted father. He was always a strange man. He kept quiet and rarely showed emotion. I didn't find this strange when I was young. I just assumed he was shy like some kids at school. Then there was my adopted papa. He was always kind, always had a smile. He'd hold us at night if we couldn't sleep. The time he'd have strange wounds. They would appear. He'd blame it on clumsiness. It would always seem to change. Then there was my adopted sister. She was always bright-eyed and bubbly. She'd laugh and throw water at us in the morning while we were brushing our teeth. I still don't know where she went. Then there was Baba, my adopted little brother. He was a big crier, which sometimes annoyed me when I was young. Now I miss it. The day it all changed is a day I'll never forget. Well, more like the week it happened. My name is Marigold, and this is my story. My family has always been a little off, but only in my eyes. To everybody else, we were just a normal family on a normal street who had normal jobs and perfect children. We would play outside with the other children while our parents would smile and talk with the other parents. However, I always noticed something strange about my father. Any time a neighbor would ask my papa what happened to his face, father's smile would fall and he'd glare at them. He'd glare at us like that sometimes when we complained or bothered him too much, but seeing it now was different in a way. Every time I looked at my parents together, I swear I could feel something, almost like seeing behind a mirror. My parents' smiles were wrong. My papa's eyes were drained of life. No matter how hard he tried to pretend, I could see past it. One time my siblings and I were on the couch. It was a little past our bedtime and both were asleep. We had watched a movie with our parents before they left somewhere, which wasn't uncommon. Automatically the next movie played once the first was finished. Curiosity got the best of me and I started watching it. That's when they said something, the definition of a hypocrite, a person who pretends to have virtues, beliefs, or moral standards that they do not actually possess, often acting in a way that contradicts their claims. I thought about how father would act like that sometimes, smile around the neighbors or my teacher just for it to disappear when he walked away. Being young and finding this funny, I decided to go and seek my father to tell him about this new word I had learned, knowing he'd laugh and probably ruffle my hair before telling me to go to bed. As I walked down the hallway toward my parents' bedroom, I heard the sound of rain, yet it wasn't raining outside. The closer I got to my parents' bedroom, the louder it got. I remember gently knocking at my parents' bedroom and backing up. I heard what sounded like scrambling and shushing. I waited until he finally walked out. I happily started to explain to my father what I had learned, but instead of smiling or nodding, he just stared at me coldly. His eyes held no warmth or care, just cold and dark. He also reeked of a nasty smell, almost like smelling a penny. His hands were also stained red. At the time I didn't pay much attention to it, assuming maybe it was red paint. Past my father, into their bedroom, I could see a silhouette lying on the bed. I automatically could tell it was Papa. I felt like something was wrong. He was barely moving, and when he did, I could faintly hear a whimper as if you stepped on a puppy's tail. I could also tell my father was getting irritated. My father asked me why I was up, that I knew better than this to stay up past bedtime. He said he was disappointed in me, and if I didn't leave in the next 10 seconds he'd ground me with dirt. This was the first sign of my father's rapid change over the next week. Little things would anger him, like a drop of a pin. Especially my sister in particular got on my father's nerves. Papa became tense around father and always seemed to put himself between us and father. The more the week went on, the worse it all got. Papa's injuries started to get more intense, large wounds instead of small cuts. He also limped around a lot. My siblings and I became afraid of father, and he could tell something in his eyes changed. By Thursday, the worst thing happened. My siblings, one by one, started to go missing. I had a feeling Father had something to do with this. He was going mad. My body, filled with fear and sadness, made a wise choice. I ran out of the house late one night. I ran to my neighbor's house, and they ended up letting me inside. I told them everything I could. They called the cops, but by the time they showed up, both my father and Papa were gone. A search for both my parents and my siblings broke out. After 4 months of nothing, I was placed into the adoption system once more. I was adopted quickly by a kind couple named Elizabeth and Peter. After a while, I was sent back to school where I tried to live a normal life, but the trauma was still there. I wish I could say this is where my story ended. Sadly, I can't. I grew up to be 19 years old, met a wonderful woman who I started to date, and started applying to universities for a biology degree. One night I was out walking the street to my adopted parents' home after long hours of work when I felt eyes on the back of my head, burning a hole. It was raining heavily that night. I was focused on covering myself to try and not get sick when all of a sudden I was hit with a huge wave of pain and everything went black. By the time I woke up, I could see nothing, but oh, I could feel pain, so much pain. My body felt like it was being torn piece by piece. I could hear someone whispering, "Little brat, thinking you could run, just like your papa." It felt like someone was stabbing needles in me, thick, sharp needles. I couldn't cry out, nor could I move. I just had to take it. After a while I was picked up and thrown onto the ground. A handful of what I thought were seeds were shoved down my throat before dirt was thrown on me, a grave. Every moment was agony. I somehow managed to pull myself out of the shallow grave and take the blindfold off. I looked down at my body and tried to scream, but nothing came out. Flowers were stabbed into my skin everywhere. Every place I looked there was some type of flower. My guts felt like they were wrapped around in a vine. I stumbled around and fell to the ground, and blood poured out onto the grass. Everything felt cold and far away until slowly I closed my eyes and everything went black.